Thank you so much, Chairwoman Beatty, for always centering since the beginning of my days here last term until now. And of course, thank you, Chairwoman Waters, for continuing to support the work of Chairwoman Beatty. You know, I think it's really important as a person that did organizing for a long time, this conversation and debate about equity versus equality. You know, something I learned very on, Chairwoman, and for the panelists and my colleagues, is that, you know, equality is giving everybody the same pair of shoes, just give everybody a pair of shoes. Equity is giving them a pair of shoes that actually fit. It's something that I learned. I don't know where I picked it up from, but I remember that, and it really stuck with me in understanding the difference. But let me get to many of the panelists here, and thank you so much for your patience and sticking with us on really important questions and fully understanding how we can be helpful and be a partner here. With 47 trillion in assets under management, you know, the decisions that these, you know, firms make with regards to diversity and inclusion have implications for the entire financial services industry and our economy. And I think that's why we're having this hearing. And as the committee's report found, we have a lot of work to do. The industry does. And I'd like to, you know, ask all of you about the SEC's, you know, recommendations for diversifying the industry. You know, in July, the SEC's Asset Management Advisory Committee, Subcommittee on Diversity Inclusion found, quote, widespread gender and racial bias in the decisions by those in positions making asset and asset manager allocation decisions regarding who manages money for governments, universities, charities, foundations, and the institutional market in general. The committee made a number of recommendations. They went on in stating that investors, the industry, the public markets would benefit by SEC guidance that clarifies that a wide variety of factors may be considered by fiduciaries in their selection of asset management firms, and that fulfillment of one's fiduciary duty in this context does not require automatic exclusion of asset managers who are newer to the industry or who do not already have certain level of AUM. So, Mr. Pan, Ms. Tarapola, apologize, and Mr. Clements, if a firm acquires the services of outside asset management firms, how are they assessed? Is the assessment based exclusively on things like assets under management or years in industry, or is it more holistic evaluation completed?
So I'm happy to go first. So I cannot speak to how a specific individual firm goes about this activity, and given my position at a trade association. But what I can tell you is that different firms follow a variety of factors that are unique to their circumstances, their needs. You know, the fiduciary duty that exists today, that of the duty of care, the duty of loyalty they have to their shareholders, is something. Well, it's not only it's a fiduciary duty, but it's obviously something that all of our members take extremely seriously. And I think coming just really quickly, you know, the reason why diversity and inclusion is so important to our industry is this recognition that a diversity of viewpoints, diversity of staffing is highly consistent with ensuring that you're doing the best you can for your shareholders.
Congresswoman, this is Cyrus Thoropravala. I'll go next. Thank you for your question. Just to clarify, as a large asset manager ourselves, we're on the receiving end, if you will, in terms of that selection process that you're describing, not on the deciding end. But we do agree with, I think, what you're describing, which is a wide variety of factors should be considered in the selection process. Rarely, but very rarely, we do hire ourselves, what's called sub-advisors, another asset manager to manage part of our assets. It's a tiny part of most of what we do, we manage ourselves internally. But when we do think about sub-advisors, we do consider diversity and inclusion factors as part of that decision criteria.
And this is Mr. Clements. I would note when we in our report talked about key practices, one of those key practices is to look to remove potential barriers. So for example, looking at assets under management or track record and trying to target those better to the firm so that it better matches the needs and work for firms of all sizes while still retaining the fiduciary obligations.
No, and I agree about in regards to tracking data, how incredibly important that is in producing diversity inclusion results. Madam Chair, that's all for my question line. I really, again, cannot thank you enough for your commitments and really just determination to making sure we get this right. You were there when I asked bank CEOs at one point if they knew what environmental racism was. And it's my heart sank when every single one of them had no idea, or I heard the term. And again, my district lives it every single day. And I just was taken aback by that. But I know by including people like us in these places that are making decisions, it's going to make a huge difference. Thank you so much, Chairwoman. I yield.